Welcome to Inside the Mind, a podcast hosted by myself, Jennifer Forster, and my beautiful co-host, Ali May. We're excited to be here, diving into edgy, raw, and relatable conversations, woven together with mind-blowing questions that will shake up your model of the world, expand your thinking, unravel your beliefs, tease apart your patterns, and walk you to the very edges of everything you've ever believed about yourself.
As NLP trainers, coaches, entrepreneurs, we will be traversing the topics of business, relationships, money, family, spirituality, leadership, and personal growth, all through the discerning lens of NLP, ancient teachings, and a healthy sprinkling of womanly wisdom. One thing we believe to be true is that if we want a different outcome, we must be willing to ask a different question. And the answers to those questions are always inside the mind. Welcome back to another episode of Inside the Mind. I'm Ali May. This is my beautiful friend, bestie, co-host Jen Firestar.
Partner in epic shit.
Yes. A deep diver of the mind.
A traveller down rabbit holes. Co-traveller.
Sidekick. Love it. All right. So today we are diving into one of my favoritist topics. I love anything to do with being a woman. And for our beautiful male listeners, if you recognize yourself as being a man, then you will get some benefit out of today's session as well, or today's episode as well. So, gosh, I don't even know how many years ago now, I went to an extraordinary event called Dancing Eros, and it pushed my edges in every which way, shape, and form of being a woman. And it's no longer running. Dancing Eros is no longer running.
How do you spell that for our listeners?
Eros, E-R-O-S.
Great, thanks.
Dancing Eros. And what I had the pleasure of deep diving into were 4 archetypes. They are Maiden, Priestess, Slut, and Wild Woman. And today we're going to dive into those 4. There are plenty of other archetypes. We're going to dive into those 4 specifically and how they relate to us as being women. So these, if you will, are like characters.
Yeah, so Carl Jung, to give a little bit of NLP context here, it's kind of relevant and not relevant, but archetypes themselves, Carl Jung, the extraordinary philosopher, he's like the grandfather of NLP in many ways as well. He's certainly the grandfather of archetypes. Archetypes are exactly what you just said. It's a way of creating some attributes for a particular character that we play in our lives. And we play all of them in many ways, don't we?
We do.
Yeah.
It's just a way to, like any modality or any personality identifier, it's just another way where we can learn more about ourselves.
So there are a lot of different personality profiling, things like, for example, Myers-Briggs, Enneagram. There are a lot of different ways in which archetypes are used as a means of understanding ourselves and the many characters. However, for today, we're going more specific here, and more specific for our female listeners, because about 86% of our listeners are women, or who identify as women anyway. So this is going to be really relevant, isn't it, for you? So I love this. When you first shared this with me in a container of yours that I did, this helped me to know myself and bring compassion to the parts of me and the parts that I would have once deemed shadow, not so nice. I don't want the world to know this part of me. It helped me to know myself and love myself in such a more deep and reverent way. Yeah, I love it. And we might even just add a 5th one if there's time at the end, which is Wise Woman, which is also known as Crone. We'll see how we go there, but dive on in, Ali, because this is fascinating. Ladies, strap in. I'm telling you, strap in. This is a good one.
So my edgiest archetype when I went and did Dancing Eros was Slut. When I was 20, I was a stripper, and over the years, like, I had no problem with what I did as a job. I was in a relationship. I was really good at what I did. And, to me, it was a job. And over the years after that, I noticed that I developed this issue around men looking at me, and I never wanted women to be uncomfortable around me. And because I'd been paid money to show my body, I kind of shut down in that department. I cut my hair really short. I started to cover myself up with the clothing that I wore. And I guess I lost that sexuality side of myself, external to the bedroom. When it came to dancing with slut energy, that one, even saying the word for me, it's
very
jarring.
it's
jarring.
Yeah,
right?
if you're listening to this, I know for me, the word slut, it's so jarring because for me, maybe many of you too, going back to my high school days, I specifically can remember year 10 for me was a really, oh my God, it was just such a time. I don't know how it was for anyone else. It was such a time. I'm no longer a little girl. I'm not yet a woman per se. And yet I felt very womanly. And I also knew, because of conditioning, values, all the things, that if I was too womanly, then the other women, usually before the men, the other women or girls in my classroom would call me or refer to me as a slut. Now, I partook in that as well. I'm not judging anyone here. I also was given a very clear set of characteristics and parameters back then that would tell me what was a slut and what wasn't a slut. And quite honestly, it pisses me off no end now, because it did then teach me how to shut down a really, really important part of myself. And it also taught me to subscribe even more to the good girl, bad girl syndrome that was already in my unconscious mind. This and this means you're a good girl, this and this means you're a bad girl, and we only want to be a good girl. And slut just fed that, just like galvanized that as even more truth as to what made me a good girl and what made me a bad girl. So sharing that, for relatability and resonance. So if you find that word jarring, lean in on that and maybe give some love to the part of you that may find that jarring at this point in time.
And by the time I'm finished sharing about this, perhaps there'll be a bit more gentle energy around it. So for me, I was called a slut from a very early age because I wore small clothing. So I'd wear little shorts or little tops. I was really tiny I'm still tiny, and I was really tiny when I was young. And so, wearing baggy clothes and big clothes just didn't feel good for me on my body. So I got labeled slut without ever, traditionally it's sleeping around. Well, what I'm going to dive into around here, it's not about necessarily the sex side of things. So with each archetype, we have the empowered and we have the disempowered. And when we look at slut, this is the side of us. Have you ever walked into a room and there's been a woman in the room that you cannot take your eyes off? She could be fully dressed, like head to toe, or she could be in, a little bit of cleavage showing, or she could be, short skirt. Doesn't matter what she's specifically wearing. However, the energy is magnetic and you just cannot take your eyes off her. She holds herself in such a way where you're just like, I want a piece of that, or you're intimidated by it, depending on what's going on your insides.
You know who that is for me at the moment? You will know. Melanie Ann Layer. I find her magnetic.
She is so magnetic.
I cannot take my eyes off of her. Like, just when she speaks, I'm just, I'm equal parts want to be her and equal parts intimidated by her.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
So in this, when we look at the slut energy, to me, it's more around the sensual, holding ourselves really empowered. There's that elegance and that grace as well. And it doesn't have to be that. It can also be, a bit messy. And the slut energy, empowered slut energy, isn't about just having sex to get what we want. It's nothing to do with having sex to get what we want. We do not use our power as women to get what we want when we're working our slut. It's that piece with, you can be in any room and there's just this sensuality oozing out of you because you are centered and grounded and empowered in your own sexuality and sensuality. So women won't feel threatened by you unless they've got their own internal stuff going on, or intimidated by you unless they've got their own internal stuff going on. So
it's almost like, I'm loving this. I feel like I'm having my own little masterclass here. It's almost like the empowered in one shines a light on the disempowered in another.
Yeah. Oh, and another person that's witnessing that. Yeah, for sure.
That's a good one. Oh my God, I really got that. So and also it's converse, right? So our disempowered can also shine a light on someone's empowered. Oh my goodness. It just, to me, that's just a whole nother extension of perception is projection, because we're just little human beings with movie projectors strapped to our head, projecting out a movie that we then get to engage in.
Perception is projection has become one of Jen's and my favorite topics of the last couple of weeks. We've been taking it to deeper layers, and maybe we'll circle back on that at some point.
Go back to, if you want to tune in on that, go back to, I think it's episode 2. The episode's called Stop Projecting Your Shit.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I'm really, really in love with perception projection right now. So our slut, empowered. It's essentially not using your sexuality or sensuality or your sensuality to get what you want. You can be messy, as I said, messy in it as well. Like you can wear the shortest skirt, the shortest top. You're not manipulative in your slut energy. You are just empowered in who you are, and there's no shame around your sex, your sexuality, who you are, whether you relate to being female, pansexual, gay, lesbian, queer, however it works for you, whichever label you give yourself, whichever sexuality you put to yourself, it's irrelevant. Slut can be any of us and all of us. So that's a little bit about our slut energy. If we go into let's go next to our, I'm gonna go opposites. Let's go to our maiden energy. Maiden is, to me, just Lolita. Always drops in Lolita. It's our the movie. Yeah. So in the energy of Lolita, it's this innocence, and also can be sexual as well, and not necessarily so, and can be Lolita. It's got that very sexual, sensual energy. To me, when I think of Maiden, I think of our innocent young girl side of ourselves that can have her legs spread, that can wear no bra, that can, with a white top like a white shirt over the top, or a white singlet, we can see parts of her, and she's in that purity of her innocence and her magnificence. And in our society, as women, I feel like a lot of us have been told to cover up. You can't sit with your legs spread. Like I know little girls that are told you can't sit with your legs spread because some man might be watching you. Like, what the fuck? And same with like having your nipples showing and whatnot. So for me, when I learned about my maiden, that sweetness, the pure innocence of self, I stopped covering up. Like I never used to cover up, and then like cover up my breasts. Then I started to not care about wearing a bra. I was in my own space. It was, if I was wearing something that was slightly see-through and someone was watching me, I wasn't watching someone watching me. I was just in the purity and the innocence of being a woman. I love the maiden so much. It's just that, I haven't got anything else to share there on that around Maiden. She's just the sweetness, the purity, the wholesomeness of being woman. If we were to look at the opposite of that, if we were to look at disempowered, it would be using those aspects to get what you want. That's how I look at that.
Disempowered in almost in archetypal conversations and in life in general, disempowered is, to me, in my model of the world, there's either a conscious or unconscious, because sometimes we don't know we're doing it. However, there's a manipulation at hand. Definitely. And bring it back to NLP, it's not ecological. There's no ecology in disempowered actions and choices.
No, and there would just be hurt underneath, or there would be shame, or like there could be hurt, shame, sadness, anger, a whole bunch of things, guilt, a whole bunch of things sitting underneath our behaviors and our actions of why we could be disempowered within these aspects of ourselves.
And come to our training and we will help you to clean that shit up and teach you how to clean that shit up for other people as well.
Exactly. Nice plug there, Jen.
Thank you.
So if we move on to our priestess, and just a little on priestess, our priestess is our boundary setter. Our priestess is our gatekeeper. She ain't letting anybody into our heart space, our womb space, our being, our energetics, our vortex, unless we say so. Now, for me, the disempowered side is the side of us that doesn't have boundaries. It's the side of us that just is like, here, have what you want of me, do what you want. You can treat me like a doormat, and I'm going to love you anyway. And we've done an episode on boundaries as well.
We have, yeah. So a few episodes back, we've spoken to boundaries.
In Dancing Eros, like we did a day at a time with each of these archetypes, and we would actually move, like dancing, movement-wise, we would move with each of these archetypes. And it was really powerful that each day, even before we knew which archetype was coming the next day, all the women would start to go into the energetics. You could feel it and you could see it, the energetics of the next archetype. It was wild. Yeah, it was such a cool retreat. I think it was 9 days when I went, and then I went back and assisted as well, and just mind-blowing. Very, very clever what was created there. So then if we go over to, I'm not going to share more on that one as well, just touch on those. Wild woman is my, oh gosh, I love wild woman. If we look at ourselves and we look at nature and we look at how we are a mirror of nature, when like there's a little wind outside at the moment, I see wild woman as the wind. I see her as the crashing waves. I see her as the storm. I see her as the dirt. Wild woman doesn't give a fuck about what she looks like. She doesn't care about what she says. And also remember, there's disempowered and empowered. So even though she doesn't give a fuck about what she says, she's still empowered in her. If she tells you to get the fuck out of her space, it's not from a leaky energy space or from a manipulative space or from a fuck you space that's disempowered. It's from a, this is my boundaries. This is where I sit right now, and get the fuck out. And you know, she doesn't need to be perfect or polished. She's not about, you know, her lipstick can be messy if she wears lipstick, and her mascara can be running if she wears mascara. And wild woman, kind of the energy comes up from the earth, up through our pussy, up into our being, and we are like this, whoa, hear me roar. She's powerful. Gosh, she's powerful, our wild woman. I remember my NLP trainer, Katie, when I went and did one of her trainings, she actually, how I got onto Dancing Eros was Katie brought in some of the archetypes to our NLP training. And we were down the beach and we were doing wild woman. And when you get into the energy of these archetypes, which I'll come back to how you can access these, could you please remind me to come back to that if I don't, Jen? How we can get into these energies when we feel like it and why we would want to. We were on the beach and it was all on. The music was playing. I think we had I Want to Fuck You Like an Animal was the song. If you know that song, it's like pretty potent and powerful. And we were just in our wild woman energy, and it was beautiful and it was magical and it was pure in itself. It's I don't give a fuck. I'm just going to be fully expressed. I'm going to be in my allness, no matter what that is. And also, wild woman can be soft too. She doesn't have to be so up in your grill and in your face. She's just this power.
If you've ever sensed a storm that's brewing and it hasn't yet hit, but you can sense the power and the strength, and there's almost a reverence to the energetics of a storm as it's brewing in. You know, I know for myself, I know to have reverence. It's the only word that keeps coming through. I know that I get to be very respectful of the storm because, you know, it demands that, right? It commands and demands that through its presence.
Yeah, and get out of the way. If you want to push the storm, if you want to stand out under the lightning, if you want to be in the torrential rain when it comes, then, you know, there's a risk in being in that space. Also, it can be very beautiful to be in that space. Wild woman, she is powerful and passionate. So just coming back to the dancing piece here and how we can access these parts of ourselves. These work in with our cycle. So we did an episode on the masculine and feminine energy as well. And each part of our cycle also has the link in with the archetypes. I'm not going to go into the linkage on that today. However, they link in. So, you know, I will go. Our wild woman is when we're the week before our bleed, is our wild woman energy. And when we're in that, if you have a look at the space of being the week before your bleed, if you don't bleed, you will still have a cycle. You will still have the feeling of the week before the bleed and the experience of the week before the bleed. In there is when we have beautiful access to our wild woman energy. So ways that we can activate that during that time are we can put on music that's got that, you know, the more, I don't want to say aggressive, it's not the right word, but the hardcore music and move our body. So if there's some PMS going on, if there's some frustration going on, if we haven't honored our bodies during the month, if we've worked and pushed through, you know, we've pushed through the feminine and the masculine energy, our body's going to say, fuck you a little bit. And so we can have the feelings of anger, depression, frustration. We can have all these parts going on, burnout, the whole lot. A way we can release that is we can access our wild woman energy. Pop on some music that feels good to you, that's got that little bit of fuck off energy to it, and get in the movement piece. Move your body. Movement allows us to shift energy. So good.
Whole thing going on there. Just if you're on YouTube, you've already seen me doing it. I was just doing, think of it as shifting this energy that's, you know, wanting to come up and through us versus most of us are taught, this is not just with the energy, but with our emotions and our feelings. And, we're taught to suppress and repress that, don't show it. However, it's purposeful. It's particularly with the cycles and with moving with our masculine and feminine energy and working with those energetics. The archetypes and channeling these energies is such a beautiful way of allowing that energy to come up and out and through and be expressed in a really healthy way.
Yeah. And I love what you just shared there, Jen. I would like to bring this in a little bit more around suppression. We are taught to suppress our wild woman. We are taught to suppress our slut. We are taught not to have boundaries. We are taught to hide the innocent parts of ourselves from such an early fucking age.
Just be a good girl.
Yeah.
Just be a good girl.
From such an early age. It's crazy. And
drives me a little crazy, the whole good girl thing. Define good girl, because, spend a minute there and define for yourself right now, what is a good girl? I can tell you, if you ask that question to a room of 100 women, you would get 100 different definitions of what is a good girl. Because where did that definition come from? It came from parents, family, friends, school, your geographic location. That's what would give you that definition in the first instance. And so we're all attempting, I'm still working on not having that word in my vortex, but we're attempting to fit to the mold of good girl, which means in many cases, I'm going to go out on a limb here and go almost all of us, for us to maintain that good girl version of us, it will require that we suppress and repress parts of us. And we wonder, oh my God, this just gets me so fired up. We wonder why we have things like burnout, why we, are leaving relationships, after being together for 20 or 30 years, suddenly you're like, I just can't do this anymore. Have you ever wondered why you can't just do this anymore? I'm going to suggest it may be because parts of you have been suppressed and repressed over the years to fit into someone else's version of what a good girl is and who you're supposed to be.
Yeah, and you just fit into the box. And
fit into the box.
The whole point of these
archetypes. It's not who you are.
No, it's not who we've ever been. And the whole point of these
because
archetypes.
We're all these archetypes, Ali, aren't we? We're not even one of these archetypes. Throughout our cycle, throughout our life and the cycles that make up our life, we're all of these. And we've been conditioned by fucking society to not be who we innately are. Imagine saying to a storm, okay, storm, listen, ease up on the lightning. Nobody likes lightning, and if you could just tone down the thunder, it's not too loud, just a little bit of thunder, but make it soft. In fact, don't make it really soft. Make it really soft. And those dark clouds, could you lighten them up a bit? Could we have them a little lighter and brighter? No one likes a dark cloud. That's exactly what Ali's sitting here laughing. But isn't that exactly
that was the best metaphor?
The best metaphor for what society is telling us to do. And so imagine saying that to a storm. Like it would no longer be a storm. Well, this is what's happening for us beautiful humans. We are sitting here as who we are not based on someone else's set of ideals, principles, and conditioning. These archetypes, I was going to ask the question, why is this important, Ali?
But I'm sitting here just going, yep, Jen, Jen, yep, Jen.
It's important because understanding the energy of these archetypes and understanding the empowered and disempowered versions of them gives us capacity to know ourselves as the cyclical beings that we are, to love all elements of ourselves and how we are and who we are, and be able to, in a really empowered way, work with these energies. They serve a purpose.
And I am actually going to go back to the piece around our cycle and the time of the month where you can work with these archetypes, because I feel like it's really
I think it's
powerful.
important. I know you said you were going to not. I think it's really important.
And if you haven't listened to our episode on feminine and masculine energy and understanding our cycle, you may like to go back and have a listen to that. You'll just have to scroll back through and see which episode that is. So when we look at the week of our bleed, And again, if you haven't got a bleed, this still is relevant to you. It will just be different for you on how you figure out when you would normally bleed and when you would ovulate. So you either, on average, it's not always.
It's not a blanket, but you know, generally speaking,
a woman will bleed at a full moon or a new moon. And so if you don't have a bleed, you can track your cycle. It's a whole other episode. You can grab one of my favoriteest books on the planet, Code Red, and deep dive into this. It's by Lisa Lister. We'll make sure that our podcast manager and her team pop the link for you somewhere where you're reading all of the information about this specific episode, and we'll make sure we've got the link there for you for the book.
And just for the listeners who are in my demographic, which is 56, I haven't had a bleed since I was 45. I had an early menopause, haven't had a bleed since I was 45. However, I now know my cycle. I know when I'm in my masculine energy. I know when I'm in my feminine energy. So if you are listening to this and go, well, I don't have a womb, I don't have a uterus, I don't have a bleed, I don't have anything, you still have a cycle. Why? Because you are a cyclical being. We all are. Yeah, and we can track it.
100%. And that book, Code Red, will support you to get a deeper understanding of our cycles. There's 4 specific chapters that go into our 28-day cycle. Some women have a 35-day cycle. Some might have a 20-day cycle. We have a cycle blanket overview says 28 days. So I'm just going to go into this to give you, and then I think we'll wrap up. I'm just going to go into this to give you some tangible tools here for utilizing, or not even utilizing, accessing these archetypes in your life to create a relationship with these parts of yourself. If you haven't already got the relationship here. And if you do, you might like to deepen the relationship with these parts of yourself. So when we are in the week of our bleed, we are in our maiden energy. That's our soft energy. That's our innocent energy, as I've already touched on. So we might want to be crying at that point in time too. It's that, just think, really gentle, cozy, soft, innocent energy. So you might put on some soft, gentle music and move your body that way. You might run a bath for yourself and put on some lovely music for that. You could do it in the shower. You might take some time sitting with a cup of tea and your journal, and just really tap into that energy and what's there for you. Ask your body, what do you want to share with me in this moment? Maiden energy, this side of myself, this innocent side of myself, what's there for me to learn this moment? What gift do you have for me right now? Then when we go into the week after that, we're in our priestess energy, in our boundaries. So we're starting to we're working towards our ovulation stage here. We're not quite in it, but we're working towards that. So our priestess energy, it's our boundaries, as I've already talked about. It's that strength within us. It's doing what we say we're going to do. With that, the types of music that you can listen to there are strong, empowered songs. There's Dayadova is a great Australian artist, for when we're in our priestess energy. Something that's got it's a holding energy. Devi Prayer is a great one as well. A great song for our priestess. It's just that. It's just strength. Then, so you can again do the same thing. Put on some music and let the energy flow through you. Ask, like, where do I get some growth, or where can I get some growth around creating boundaries? What do you need from me right now? Where do you need some protection right now? How can I support us right now? We're in our masculine energy here. Priestess has that kind of masculine energy going on. When we're in the week of our ovulation, we are in our slut energy. We are the queen of fucking everything. Have a play around maybe with some lingerie. Have a play around with being like wearing no knickers and seeing how you feel with that. Be fully clothed and see if you can be in that sensual, sexual energy. It's natural for us when we're in our ovulation stage to want to have sex. And it's the time where we usually it's the time when we want to have babies. So our body, like our pussy, opens up more. Our mucus gets thicker, where it's like we just can't get enough usually. When we're empowered, Jen's got this beautiful smile on her face.
I'm just like...
And give me a second. And so that's when we're in that space. So maybe you like to self-pleasure to some sexual, sensual music. A couple of my favorites are Rihanna's Skin. What's my other favorite called? It's on my phone, which we're recording with. There's another one. I can't think of the name of it right now. if it comes back to me, I'll pop it in, get it in the comments section as a link. There's some beautiful songs that we can listen to that can really support our slut energy. And yeah, have a play. Like, see what side have you been suppressing, or what side have you been, how have you been manipulating? What if you didn't manipulate anymore? What if you were embodied and empowered in your sexuality and sensuality, and you were moving that way? And you can have a look there, like, where am I leaky with my energy? I know for me, I used to be, someone once said to me, Ali, you're the kind of girl that women don't trust with their men. It's like, shit. Like, that I know that's one person's opinion, and if I'm like truthful,
it's a judgment. If you've listened to the last episode, that's a judgment, right? That's where we will have been can experience judgment, and we can only be judged. Say it with me, people. If we give permission to be judged, right?
I also like there's multiple factors there, right? So something was going on for that woman to feel insecure. Also, what was my energy like? If someone says that, like someone had the courage to say that to me, I get to do a check-in in my life to go, is this true for me? I don't have to take what that person says on board, and I like to ask the question, is this true for me? And then I'll dive into that. And in my past, I didn't give a shit if you had a boyfriend. Like, I didn't care. My energy was leaky. I wasn't the nicest. If I wanted a man and he had a girlfriend, I really didn't care. This is under 30. And, you know, that energy for me is like, I do not want that energy in my being. I love that part of myself. I respect that part of myself. It's not I don't respect the behavior. So from within myself. So, and I'll just go a little deeper on that. We all have reasons for doing things. Mine was, I never felt lovable. So what do? Whatever we can to feel lovable, right? So we don't give a shit about other women. We might not give a shit about other women because we just want what we want to feel lovable, to get that dopamine hit. I worked through that, and I love.
And how did you work through that, Ali? What tool, what modality did you use to work through that?
Timeline therapy.
Thank you.
Through and through. Timeline therapy took away my shame. It took away my guilt. It took away where I couldn't look at myself because of the decisions that I'd made, just a few when I was younger. It allowed me the freedom to then go on and be the woman that I've become today, which I pride myself on being a woman. When you're in a room with me, unless you have some really big stuff going on, there should be no reason that you would feel that way about me. So I took that seriously, what that woman said, because I never want to be that woman. I know what it's like to be in a room and feel that way about another woman, and I know what it's like to have been that woman. So yeah, so where can you deep dive into your slut a little bit more? And then I've already shared our wild woman is the week before our bleed. It's when we're in that heavier energy. And you know, can you let it out? Can you let out the roar that's within you if she's within you? And just if you're doing this, the roar, the physical roar, it's from our womb. So if you were, those of you that aren't looking at me, actually you won't even see if you're watching on YouTube. If just imagine you're squatting down a little bit, and you lean down and you pull the earth's energy up and through your legs and up through your pussy and up into your heart space. And then you, like, it's a guttural, you pull it up and then let it out down through the womb. So if you're, rather than screaming from the throat, we never want to scream from the throat when we're working with our wild women. If there's some energy there that's stuck, if you're feeling like you want to let some shit out, that just bearing down with your, it's hard for me to explain, bearing down into your pelvis and letting your roar out from the womb space will save your voice box. And it brings you into the depth of your wild woman energy as well. So that's just a little bit. I mean, Jen, the course that Jen did with me was 6 weeks when we dived into this, and we have talked about us running another program and doing a combo on that. It's coming up again.
Yeah, and it's coming up again. So watch this space. So I would maybe around August it could drop. Who knows? We don't know, but because that's how we operate, right? We allow things to channel through us versus trying to control everything. Yeah. So we'll see. And if it speaks to you, reach out to us, and we'll see where that takes us. I think this might have been our longest episode, I reckon.
Great.
I reckon it might have been, but well worth it. Well worth it to know yourself at this level. And I also want to just close out by answering the question, what has this got to do with NLP and timeline therapy? Everything. It has everything to do with NLP and timeline therapy, because how we see ourselves, how we're experiencing our negative emotions, how the beliefs that we carry, our values, all of those pieces, we get to be really empowered with being clean, clear, and congruent through the body of work that is NLP and timeline therapy.
And our last episode was on judgment, and I have a piece here that's coming through. Where are you judging someone in their maiden? Where are you judging someone with their boundaries? Where are you judging someone in their slut? And where are you judging someone in their wild woman? Because if those parts of you are not clear, clean, and congruent, if you're not embodied in those parts, there's a good chance that you're projecting your shit out onto other people and you're judging other women. I'm not okay with us judging other women. You know, we all get to be a stand for each other. We all get to love, respect, and honor each other in my model of the world.
Same, in mine too. And that's the new, to me, that's the new world we're moving into. The 1,000-year or more cycle of women turning on each other and not trusting each other. And, you know, to me, that's past. I believe women will lead humanity. This is my belief, just making that clear. I believe it is women that will lead our humanity into this new phase of human history. We can only do that when we are clean, clear, and congruent as women within ourselves, because then we will not project our woundings out onto other women, which will just simply perpetuate the cycle continuing. This is a time where we get to do a pattern interrupt on a humanitarian scale, like a global scale. This is a pattern interrupt, cleaning up our womanly wounds, our internal woundings, is how we get to create this new world that I certainly desire to live in.
Me too. On that note, we'll close it out here. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode. Wherever you are watching this or viewing this, thank you. We appreciate you. If you haven't left a review for us yet or 5 stars for us yet and you love what we're doing, we would really appreciate that. The more love that we receive from you, for those of you that love what we're doing, the more love that we receive, the more impact and reach we get to have as well. So it's a co-creation. So thank you so much for the co-creation with us.
And see you on the next episode.
Catch you then.